Welcome, everyone. My name is Tina Lose. I'm the coordinator for Newburyport's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Alliance. The mission of the Alliance in Newburyport is to work together to find ways to make our city more welcoming, inclusive, and diverse for the people who live, work, and visit our community. Our alliance is composed of about 20 community leaders, city employees, and citizens who are working and volunteering their time to help us make this vision a reality. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Sean Reardon, who is one of our mayoral candidates, and we're going to be asking Sean a few questions about diversity in our city. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with our first question here. So Sean, what does it mean to you for Newburyport to prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion, also known as DEI? How do you see DEI fitting into your strategic plan for the city? And what benefits does Newburyport get from prioritizing inclusion?
Yeah, well, first, I really appreciate the work of the DEI. I credit Mayor Holliday for putting this group together. I think going forward, there's so many important conversations that I think this group needs to lead and take part of, and I'm looking forward to continuing that work as mayor. I've worked in the education industry for the past 16 years, and fortunately, DEI kind of fits into some of the work that I've been doing. I have had the opportunity to work with urban school districts around the state around issues and diversity, equity, inclusion. I got to work with Tyrone Howard out of UCLA, who's one of the foremost experts around race and equity, currently working, in the country today. So I was very fortunate to have that experience, and it was really eye-opening. What Dr. Howard talks a lot about is, putting the data in front of the districts that he's working with, and the data really can tell a story. So I think it's incredibly important to continue to have these important conversations within the community. As far as what are your hopes for Newburyport? What do I want to see in a Sean Reardon administration's Newburyport around DEI? I think we need to continue to be that community that's welcoming to everyone from all walks of life. We need people of different backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives, and I think it can really help you, build consensus and get a better perspective around some of the decisions you're making as a community. And I think, the DEI is a huge part of that.
Wonderful, thank you. So Sean, do you think Newburyport is a welcoming community to Black, Indigenous, and people of color? And what would you do as mayor to increase racial and ethnic diversity in Newburyport to make it a more welcoming community?
Yeah, I don't think I'm someone who can make that determination. I think you need to ask someone, who's Black, Indigenous, or a person of color. And I'm fortunate to have a lot of friends in my life of those backgrounds. And sometimes I get mixed answers from them. And I just even know on the school committee over the past few years, we've had some incidences that, make me really sad sometimes for what I see in my community. So what I will say as mayor is that I will work every day to make our community welcoming and inclusive. I think it does absolutely can start from the top. I think that can reverberate down to the different departments in the city, but it has to be, something that we're really promoting and really believing in. I think one of the things I'd like to do as mayor is take a really close look at how we're hiring here in town. I was able to talk to the HR director a few weeks ago from my campaign and learned that we are like 98% white as far as how we're hiring in town. So I think moving forward, I just think that has to be something that comes from the mayor's office and a way to lead in. We have to really increase our pool of candidates and look for those diverse applicants to bring into the city, because I do think you gain a tremendous amount of perspective and expertise around different issues, again, and it's just by, building those diverse teams. And I think that can start at the top with the mayor.
So Sean, where do you stand on teaching U.S. history in the school curriculum, especially as it relates to those times when our country has not lived up to the values expressed in its founding documents?
So this is definitely in my wheelhouse. I'm I'm just starting my 5th year on the school committee. I've worked in education the past 16 years, and I was a former teacher before that. So what I will say is, I think it's incredibly important to learn from all aspects of our country's past. In Massachusetts, we have curriculum standards and that we need to follow, and that's how we're assessed. In 2018, Massachusetts redid their social studies curriculum, and there was definitely, definitely things that they were trying to incorporate into the standards. We brought civics back to 8th grade, which I think is incredibly important. I know Newburyport does a lot of great work around civics in the 8th grade, and they put in different aspects of focus on African American studies, and also just trying to expose students to many different cultures. So they call that culturally responsive education. So I think those were all great initiatives. Now I say going forward, I think there needs to be, a real emphasis on the school department. I believe we're doing that here in Newburyport on giving teachers the right tools to approach these sensitive subjects in our history. I think it's incredibly important for the students to learn this background, but I do think we have to work very hard. And again, I believe we're already have begun this work, and I definitely want to continue it on working with our teachers to make sure that they have the tools to, to approach these subjects and, make it beneficial to the students. Again, I'm glad we're already doing this work, but I just think we need to continue that work because I do think it's important.
And our last question here. As mayor, you will be faced with a wide variety of perspectives on these critical DEI issues. How do you balance the desire to build consensus versus taking a leadership role to do the right thing?
Sure, and again, I think one of the skills I want to bring to the mayor's office is building that consensus. I do think a lot of times that we're not, hearing all the voices around the table and not, trying to come to a conclusion that is best for Newburyport and then moving it forward. I do think that these kind of difficult conversations, I think Dr. Howard would call them courageous conversations, need to continue to happen in a public setting. I was part of the DEI calls in June, the 3 calls, and I can tell you, I think those calls were a great first start, but I look forward to continuing this work in a much more public matter, I guess I would say. The first call I was waitlisted on, I couldn't get in. The second call I was able to participate in, and the third call I was actually signed up to do it, and then I had a work conflict and I had to drop out. So I think we took about 60 people per call, out of a population of 18,000. Again, I think it was a good start, but I would love to build this forward into more of a public, a public forum for people to, to have these difficult conversations and talk about their backgrounds and feelings. On the school committee, I brought up an incident earlier this year with a racism incident from 1941. And I took a lot of heat from that, and for kind of taking a leadership role in that. But I do think it's important. I do think just like we can teach, sensitive subject in U.S. history in our schools, I do think we can learn from these past incidents. But I think we need to do it in a public manner. And I do think we've had incidents over the last few years that, I think it's worthy of having a public forum and that we've had on the school committee in the past around that. And so that's one of the things as mayor I would like to bring back to the table, because it just didn't, for whatever reason, it just didn't happen this year. But I do think that when you're trying to build consensus, I think for the most part, most people just want to feel like they've been heard. And again, that's the part of having the public conversation, letting people feel like they've been heard. But at the same time, while trying to build consensus as mayor, you have to hear all the voices around the table, and then you have to make a determination of like, what's the right thing to do, and then move Newburyport forward in that direction.
Great, thank you, Sean. As we close up here, are there any last comments that you'd like to include on your vision for DEI in the city?
No final comments. Just honestly, I'm really proud of this work. I think it's important. Again, I get to work with municipalities all across the state as far as their schools, and I know how important this work is, and I'm glad that we brought it to Newburyport. I do think it's a collaborative effort, in a public setting to continue this work, and I'm looking forward to being a part of that as mayor.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sean, so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
All right, thank you. Have a great day, everyone.